I imagine that, by deciding to end the series and set the final arc over a set number of books, Applegate and everyone else involved had to compress some stuff. Animorphs number 45, The Revelation, reads like 2 books crammed into one, which leads to some unfortunate pacing problems, like the aforementioned heist scene that was probably cut. The second book in this book begins with Axe configuring the human-made Z-Space communicator to listen into Yeerk broadcasts. It's a bit rough. There's no built-in translator, so Axe has to interpret alien military communications by himself. The Chi could probably be a great assistance in upgrading this thing, but the Chi cannot participate or assist in the transfer of technology that would enable war or destruction, Axe explained. It is written into their programming. I really fail to see why the Chi providing technical assistance that could cause harm is against their code, but providing intel that could cause harm isn't. The Chi's code of nonviolence is so vague that I wonder if the Chi actively lie about it to get out of doing things they don't want to do. Something to keep in mind during this final arc. Well, Axe manages to work out some communications, and it's not good news. It seems Visor 1 is back on Earth. She somehow botched the invasion of the Anati homeworld, as mentioned by Taylor in number 43, The Test. She's in the process of being executed by Kandrona starvation, right now in the Yeerk pool under the supervision of Visor 3. Once this is completed and confirmed by the Council of 13, Visor 3 will be promoted to Visor 1 and be allowed to lead a full-scale war on Earth. None of this is good news, but it is weird news. What exactly is the point of bringing Visor 1 back to Earth to be executed? The Yeerk pool on Earth has been broken into by the Andalite bandits over a dozen times, and Visor 1 has already had private interactions with them. Certainly there are more secure places to do this. The only reason I can see to do this is to give Visor 3 the honors of killing his rival. But why would the Council even care about that? They don't like Visor 3. They found him guilty on trying to manipulate them. They've sent agents down to watch over him. They don't owe him shit. You know what else they don't owe him? A promotion. Since finding Visor 3 guilty and giving him a fuck up once and you're dead ultimatum, here's what he's accomplished. He killed 50 healthy Hork-Bajir hosts by trying to graft gills onto them. He used Yeerk resources to build an unnecessary submersible craft that was immediately destroyed. He allowed the Andalite bandits to kill the Garatron Spectre, a direct agent of the Council of 13. He came up with a plan to eliminate the Yeerk peace movement by blowing up the Yeerk pool. He attacked Australia only to be repelled by boomerangs and the tourism industry. The Andalite bandits are still at large. I wouldn't trust this guy to be a janitor, let alone the highest-ranking general in the Yeerk army. But that's what's happening, and the Animorphs need to stop or delay it somehow. The only way to do that would be to rescue Visor 1. Saving her from execution may delay the promotion, and they could then pump her for information that might stop Visor 3. Of course, they were going to go down there and save her anyway. Even if there was no strategic value in saving Visor 1, the Animorphs were forced across a threshold when Marco punched that window. Visor 3 gaining total control over the invasion of Earth feels like a looming apocalypse, an unstoppable force, a fight that cannot be won. Suddenly, personal victories like saving your own family are as viable, if not more so, than war victories. Yes, there is a chance saving Visor 1 could give them an edge. But if the Animorphs are being honest with themselves, they're saving Eva because she's Marco's mother. So, it's time to break into the Yeerk pool again. But how do we get in? What I'm trying to say is that we don't have a plan. We don't even know how to get into the pool anymore. Not since they closed the car wash. They closed the car wash? They closed the one car wash? You bastards! We only had one! That's it, Yeerks. You've gone too far. Thanks to the Z-Space communicator, Axe learns of an underwater tunnel that leads to the pool that the Animorphs could pilot a bug fighter through. So the Animorphs pull off a heist. First, they send false reports of Hork-Bajir running around the woods, and when a bug fighter comes down the area to investigate, they whack the pilots over the head and fly off with it. It's shockingly straightforward. What's not so straightforward is how to get the bug fighter into the water. We spend 2 whole chapters with Axe messing around with the controls, trying to work out how to submerge the damn thing. I guess you can't just rest the bug fighter on the water and sink it like a submarine? Perhaps, Axe said shakily, perhaps we did not register sufficient velocity. If the ship intends to follow an underwater course, sufficient speed must be attained beforehand. Yes, the solution to getting the bug fighter underwater is flying at the water as fast as possible. This is about as counterintuitive as you can get, especially considering how fragile bug fighters have been shown to be throughout this series. And really, this isn't very interesting to read. We could have easily spent these 2 chapters on the heist we didn't get to see. But the plan works. The bug fighter flies into the ocean and towards the tunnel, the entrance of which is hidden in a sunken World War II battleship. No, I don't know why the Nartek went all the way to the Atlantic Ocean to claim sunken ships, but didn't grab this one that's practically on their front lawn. And no, I don't know why Jake, a huge war geek, wasn't aware of the sunken battleship right off the coast of where he lives. But then again, I don't know why we keep going into an ocean that should be irradiated by a nuclear blast. The Animorphs, all morphed as Hork-Bajir, fly the bug fighter into an underground service dock and start walking around like they belong. There's a couple of guards, but the Animorphs are convincing enough and manage to get into the Yurk-Pool proper. There they find Visor 1, chained to a stake on one of the infestation piers, bloody and screaming of pain from the Kurdrona starvation. It's a horrible sight, but there's no way to approach this subtly, no way to get to her without alerting the entire pool. So, Jake decides to chuck subtlety and alerts the pool on their own terms. They turn around and make their way back to the service dock, but this time the guards notice them, and before you can say violence breaks out and the Animorphs scatter, violence breaks out and the Animorphs scatter. There's some decent action as the Animorphs try to find each other and get back to the bug fighter. Then they fly the bug fighter through the tunnels, blasting away with their death cannons to make the tunnels bigger until they break through into the Yurk-Pool. While the bug fighter blows the crap out of whatever's nearest, Marco and Gorilla Morph and Rachel and Hork-Bajir Morph leap out and rush towards Visor 1. However, they're met with a new batch of baddies, the Blue Band Hork-Bajirs, which are to normal Hork-Bajirs what Brock Lesnar is to junior high cheerleaders. These guys are jacked, and prove to be too much for a mere gorilla and a Hork-Bajir that has just been demoted to fun size. Marco does get his mom off the stake, and soon realizes that Visor 1 has left his mother's head and is making a slow crawl off the pier to the Yurk-Pool, where she can feed and hide. Things look grim. The Blue Band Hork-Bajirs beat the snot out of Marco and Rachel, and it seems like the bug fighter the Animorphs were flying gets shot down. Oh, and Visor 3 is there. Visor 3 is always there. With our 2 heroes down for the count, Visor 3 morphs into some kind of stealth bomber monster called the Mr. Belvedere or something. However, Visor 3 gets taken out hilariously fast when the bug fighter returns. Turns out Marco just lost track of things and saw another bug fighter get blown up. So the bug fighter blasts Visor 3 out of the sky, but the Animorphs don't finish the job because if he gains control of the invasion, he'll wage mass more, and because of reasons. The Animorphs swoop in to rescue Rachel and Marco, but not before something is done about Visor 1. My mother's face was distorted. Real human tears ran from her cheeks. Rage, pain, joy, and then her hand squished the parasite. But the slug was still alive. No! I slammed my foot on the still wriggling worm, and it was clear. It was clear that Visor 1's journey had ended. A quick, unceremonious end to the second most featured villain of the series. But it's things like this that really make Animorphs special. If this was a more fantastical series, there would be a massive build-up to a final confrontation. There would be a quest to find that special thing that will defeat the big bad, or a weakness that needs to be discovered, or an epiphany to strike our heroes at just the right moment. But that's not reality. In reality, things can just end quickly with a sudden burst of violence. It's dirty, it's unpoetic, it's war. So the Animorphs scoop up Marco, Rachel, and Eva jumps right in to help the Animorphs get out of a jam when the bug fighter falls into the Yeerk pool and gets stuck. The Animorphs make it back. Some time passes. Eva heals from her wounds, and her, Marco, and Peter all move into the Hork-Bajir Valley. Why? I have no idea. I would assume that she would have been a bit more hospitable and a little less, exposed to the elements. But then again, maybe the Chi got tired of Peter feeling all of them up. Peter, of course, is super emotional over being reunited with the woman he loved and lost. But there's still the issue with Nora. Dad pulled me aside. "Marco," he said in a whisper, "was there any way to save Nora? Is there any way to save her now?" His words made me feel a little sick, but by now I knew that life and love were complicated. "You know that I love her." I nodded, made the decision. "Dad, what if Nora was a controller all along? What if the Yeerks put her in your path because they knew you were involved in secret work?" Pain knotted my father's face. My conscience was heavy. Permanent damage had been done. My family was back together. But not really. Not honestly. This is me going into my usual deep-end theorizing mode, but while I don't doubt that Peter loves and cares for Marco, this book makes me wonder if Peter had originally wanted kids. He spends over a year in grief after Eva's death before he makes the decision to not make his son live in poverty. And when he learns about the Yeerks and the war his son is a soldier of, his instincts are towards the women he loved first. Maybe he never planned to be a father. Maybe Eva talked him into it. Whatever the case may be, he has forced Marco into a position he never should have been in. The book ends with the Animorphs going to the beach to activate the Z-Space communicator, which acts as finely modified to send signals. They open up a line with the Andalite fleet. Jake glanced at each of us, ran his hand through his hair. "This is..." He cleared his throat. He glanced back at Earth and smiled. Then he leaned in close to the device. "This is Earth," he said. Post-book follow-up. For the beginning of the end, this book could have been cleaner. The main issue is pacing. We fly through a lot of important stuff, like, again, the Animorphs breaking into the lab to steal the Z-Space communicator, and you feel like the book skips about 3 or so important conversations. And then, the book lingers on moments that aren't really all that interesting. Most notably, 2 whole chapters devoted to Axe trying to fly the bug fighter. As I mentioned before, this feels like 2 books crammed into one, which may have been the result of settling on 10 books for the final arc, forcing the authors to compress storylines already planned. Which is odd, because I can name 2 books after this one that aren't really all that important to the final arc and could have been cut entirely. Despite all that, there are some awesome highs in this book. Kay Applegate and Ellen Giroux nailed the important emotional moments, and when the action is good, it soars. It's pretty exciting in its unpredictability. This book refused to play by the old rules. It doesn't play by the rules of the Animorphs, and it doesn't play by the rules of standard action entertainment. The grimy battle in the Yeerk pool and the sudden and unceremonious death of Visser 1 are some of the shining examples of the war is hell themes of the series. War is violent, it's unpredictable, and it's just not fun. Even if you didn't know going into this that it was the beginning of the final arc, the sudden and violent changes to the status quo feel ground-shaking. Marco forced into hiding, Visser 1 dead, adult allies, everything has changed. So it's interesting how many throwbacks are in this book. There's the scene of Axe fumbling his words and going food crazy like old times, but the Animorphs also call down and steal a Yeerk ship like they try to do in number 5 The Predator. Only this time they pull it off without a hitch. There's Axe sending a signal to the Andalites like in number 8 The Alien, only in a much safer way and with better results. Axe's Oreo accident aside, we see the Animorphs running a much smoother operation than they did in the early days. This is even the most successful Yeerkpool run they've made to date. This is an important point in the series to establish how effective and dangerous the Animorphs presently are, because they're about to face their ultimate challenge. Man, just imagine all of that in a better paced book. I give number 45, The Revelation, a 7 out of 10. You know, you're not the first person with this theory. The idea that the Andalite bandits have been humans with Andalite technology. Many have suggested this. Some of them didn't live to tell anyone else. Our leader, he's an egotistical bastard. And to suggest to him his enemies are mere humans, well, it's an embarrassment he's not able to stand. It's something we no longer mention in his presence. However, I must admit, this is the most convincing evidence I've seen thus far. It will take time, but if I bring this through the right channels and wait until after our leader's promotion to avoid any political unpleasantness, then we can corner this resistance in a month's time. But why? Why you? You're not one of us. What do you hope to gain by bringing me this? Payback. Also, if you could fund a new call-out for me, that'd be swell.